Turkey just gave Mark Carney's defense strategy a major boost, and Canada may now be racing toward its biggest military transformation in generations. Ottawa is betting on record spending, expanded NATO deployments, a proposed $134 billion defense bank, new submarines, and a high-tech Arctic shield as threats intensify across Europe and the North. Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. But can Canada convert these historic promises into real military power before Russian aggression, cyber warfare, Arctic competition, and procurement failures expose its weaknesses? Here are the 4 developments that could redefine Canada's security, sovereignty, and global influence. Number 4. Ankara turning point. Canada accepts greater NATO responsibility. At the Ankara summit, Prime Minister Mark Carney signaled that Canada is ready to assume a larger, more permanent NATO role and treat defense as a core sovereignty issue, not simply another obligation to its allies. Ottawa reinforced that shift by extending the Canadian-led Operation Reassurance until 2031, planning to maintain up to 2,600 persistently deployed personnel and joining Latvia and Denmark as a framework nation for Multinational Division North. This will give Canadian commanders greater responsibility for coordinating allied forces along NATO's increasingly tense eastern flank. Canada is also connecting its alliance commitments with Arctic security. Protecting the country's enormous three-ocean approaches requires investment in northern infrastructure, over-the-horizon radar, satellites, icebreakers, missiles, cyber defense, and underwater surveillance. Serious obstacles remain, including personnel shortages, aging equipment, maintenance backlogs, and slow procurement. Even so, Ankara marked a major change in Canada's posture. Ottawa now argues that Allied credibility, Arctic control, and national security demand sustained military expansion rather than occasional injections of funding. Accepting greater responsibility, however, is the diplomatic part of the equation. The next chapter exposes the much harder question: how much will Canada spend, and can that money produce genuine military readiness? Number 3. 5% gamble. Canada's military readiness faces judgment. Carney's defense spending promise is significant, but NATO's 5% target was adopted at the 2025 Hague Summit, not created in Ankara in 2026. Allies agreed to work toward spending 5% of GDP annually on defense and security by 2035. At least 3.5% would support core military needs, including personnel, equipment, ammunition, readiness, and capability targets, while up to 1.5% could fund infrastructure, communications, civil preparedness, innovation, cyber defense, and industrial capacity. Canada says it reached NATO's previous 2% benchmark during the 2025 to 26 fiscal year, after its largest defense investment increase in a generation. Ottawa has also created a defense investment agency, raised military compensation, and committed billions to Arctic infrastructure, radar, missiles, icebreakers, and other capabilities. However, spending percentages do not automatically produce security. Canada must convert funding into trained personnel, housing, ammunition reserves, operational bases, secure communications, reliable maintenance, and equipment delivered before it becomes outdated. Readiness remains the true measure. Available crews, functioning platforms, replenished stockpiles, and forces capable of defending Canada while supporting its allies. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more enthusiasts interested in the technology, industries, and policies shaping Canada's future. Now, let's shift gears toward the 2 biggest developments in Carney's defense strategy, beginning with Turkey's surprise move. Number 2. Turkey's surprise move. Carney's $134 billion gamble accelerates. 5 days after the Ankara summit, Prime Minister Mark Carney's alliance-building strategy gained momentum when Turkey formally agreed to become a founding member of the Defense, Security, and Resilience Bank. The decision ended uncertainty after Turkish defense sources had indicated Ankara was still evaluating the proposal. Turkey joins Canada, Albania, Belgium, Greece, Latvia, Luxembourg, Romania, and Ukraine in the founding group. The proposed Canada-based institution would provide long-term financing and loan guarantees for defense manufacturing, security infrastructure, resilient supply chains, and related technologies. Its goal is to solve a major industry bottleneck. Smaller defense companies often struggle to finance factories, specialized machinery, research, inventory, and skilled workers while wading through lengthy government procurement cycles. A government-backed multinational bank could lower borrowing costs, attract private capital, and help suppliers expand production faster. Supporters say the bank could eventually mobilize up to £100 billion, or roughly $134 billion US. However, it is not yet operational and still requires domestic treaty approvals, with a possible launch in 2027. Türkiye's decision strengthens the project's credibility and supports Carney's argument that modern defense requires shared financing, connected supply chains, and deeper industrial cooperation. But financing alone cannot patrol Arctic skies or protect Canada beneath its oceans. Number 1. Arctic Shield revealed. Canada targets sky and sea. A larger submarine fleet could strengthen surveillance, intelligence gathering, maritime security, deterrence, and Canada's ability to sustain operations across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic oceans. However, submarines alone do not create an operational capability. Canada will also need trained crews, weapons, shore facilities, spare parts, secure communications, dependable maintenance, and logistics able to function in some of the world's harshest conditions. Above the surface, Canada has selected Saab as the preferred supplier for a future GlobalEye airborne early warning and control system, although no Canadian order has been placed. Built on Bombardier's Canadian-made Global 6500 business jet, GlobalEye combines long-range radar, advanced sensors, and command and control technology to monitor threats across air, sea, and land. It is designed to detect drones, low observable aircraft, ballistic threats, and hypersonic missiles, even in electronically contested environments. Combined with over-the-horizon radar, Arctic satellites, icebreakers, long-range missiles, and stronger cyber systems, these platforms could form a layered northern defense network. Canada may have chosen the core building blocks of a formidable Arctic shield. Now it must sign contracts, train personnel, and deploy the systems before today's security gaps become tomorrow's crisis across all three strategic maritime approaches. Verdict: historic promises, unproven power. Can Canada deliver? Carney's Ankara message was more than political theater, but Canada's military transformation remains in its early gears. The spending commitments are real. Türkiye has strengthened the proposed defense bank, and preferred suppliers have been identified for major submarine and airborne surveillance programs. Yet nearly every headline still carries an asterisk. The submarine acquisition contract has not been finalized. Canada has not placed a GlobalEye order. The defense bank is not operational. Personnel, infrastructure, maintenance capacity, and procurement expertise must also grow alongside the budgets. The final verdict will be measured through signed agreements, active production lines, trained crews, maintained equipment, replenished stockpiles, and deployable forces, not summit applause or ambitious percentages. Now we want to hear from you. Can Canada reform its procurement system quickly enough to deliver this buildup? Should Ottawa prioritize Arctic defense over additional overseas deployments? And will the proposed defense bank genuinely accelerate production, or merely introduce another layer of bureaucracy? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We would love to hear your perspective. For the latest automotive updates and more in-depth analysis of the technology, industries, and policies shaping our future, subscribe to Piston Pundit and enable the notification bell. You can now check out any of the videos appearing on your screen. There is plenty more to explore. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.